The Club World Cup, football's latest showpiece. We will talk about what worked and what didn't. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. Football's newest competition, the FIFA Club World Cup, wraps up this weekend. The final will see Chelsea take on Paris Saint Germain. Although the tournament has been largely successful, there have been setbacks along the way, notably poor attendance during some of the earlier games. That's raised questions as to whether organisers are doing enough to promote the game in the United States. We begin with this report from CGTN's Dan Williams.
Let's see.
This is the glittering prize that awaits the winners of the FIFA Club World Cup. After 62 matches, the 32 teams that began FIFA's inaugural Club World Cup are now down to 2. Chelsea of England will take on Paris Saint Germain of France for football's newest and possibly most extravagant trophy. And despite various criticisms, FIFA's president Gianni Infantino appears satisfied.
What this trophy represents and what the FIFA Club World Cup represents. A new competition, a challenge that we took to start a new era of club football.
The tournament hasn't been without issues. Some of the earlier games suffered from poor attendance. That raised questions as to whether FIFA could have done more to promote the tournament and suggestions that football may have reached its saturation point. That notion is concerning for organisers, given that this tournament is seen as a dry run ahead of next year's FIFA World Cup, taking place in the US as well as Canada and Mexico. It'll be the first time World Cup football matches have been played in the US since 1994.
This is probably the biggest opportunity soccer has had since 1994. If they blow this, this will be really detrimental, but I don't think they will.
Sarah Gramata is a business director of sport at the University of Tampa. She's confident that US fans will come out in force for football's biggest prize next year, allowing football, or soccer as it's known stateside, to truly break through the US market and compete with the likes of basketball, baseball and American football.
I think they see this as a big opportunity, a way to really make a dent in the soccer community. So I think this is really going to be a big turning point for the sport of soccer. There's a lot of growth in other sports, but I think the ceiling for soccer is much higher because of the infrastructure they already have.
Even as dust settles on the FIFA Club World Cup, the focus is already shifting. The altogether bigger prize, the FIFA World Cup, is now fast approaching, and with it, another opportunity for football in the US. Dan Williams, CGTN, New York.
Okay, to talk about football on and off the pitch, let's bring in our experts. From London, Laura Bernal is a sports analyst. Tim Vickery is a journalist covering football. He joins us from Rio de Janeiro, and here with us in Washington, Joe Henry is a former head coach, and Abadi Ismail is a sports commentator. Welcome to all of you. Great to have all of you with us. Abadi, let me start with you. This tournament, there's a bit of a debate going on about it. It has its supporters, it also has its detractors, and as we just heard, 32 of the world's top club teams descend on the US, which is a country not known for its love of football or soccer as it's known here. We have seen that attendance has been poor at some games. It's a new tournament. The effort is to widen the fan base. Do you think it's going to work?
Thanks for having me. So absolutely, when we look at the excitement and the engagement, there was a bang bang, there was a lot of buzz that is generated by the fan base in the US. Specifically, when we talk about YouGov Business, which is, they did a major study and a survey, 75% of the attendees fans in the age of 18 and 34. So that tells you that the new generations that living in the US or visiting the US are absolutely excited about the tournament itself. Now, the backlash is absolutely the setback on the seating area and the attendees area, and that's largely because of the FIFA wrongdoing, uprising the ticket sales at the beginning, which have definitely deferred so many people to watch the games on streaming services. And for that reason, that was like you saw some attendees in teams that are in large, not a big teams in names and brands, have a low attendance. But for majority of it, it's a success for the US, it's a success for the fan base, and it's a success for the FIFA that was able to bring a lot of promoters, a lot of sponsors, a lot of corporate influence to push this tournament beyond the domestic leagues, beyond the idea of just competing domestically. Now we are competing from a cross-continental phases. Teams in Europe playing against teams in the Latin America, and teams playing against Africans and Asian teams.
All right, great points there. Okay, let's go to Laura. Laura, this championship has been criticized by some players and coaches, and even the president of the Spanish league, La Liga. He called it absurd. But there were others like Harry Kane of Bayern Munich and Enzo Fernandez of Chelsea who say it's been a great experience. This is what the PSG coach, Luis Enrique, had to say. Let's listen.
Nice feeling because it's a unique competition, a new competition, and we're happy to be here.
Now, Europe has a very busy fixture list for its players. How do they see this tournament?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. It's really difficult to be at this tournament knowing that the season is over for the European teams and for the players that had already played almost 60 games during the season, and being at this time at very high temperatures and a high number of games playing, it's been hard for them. There's a phrase that you can almost hear in every game after every game interview, and the conditions. How was the conditions of the game? And the temperatures have been really, really tough. And after all the carrying of all the games during the season, being there has been really tough to the players. And I know that for the teams, talking about commercialization and the money that they are earning for being there, it's very high. You have to also think about the players. How are they doing about the injuries that they have suffered, or the rise of the injuries during this season? It's been almost a reality that they have been suffering a lot because the calendar, the amount of matches are increasing. And now with this new tournament, they don't have enough time to rest and to recover. If, for example, PSG, the one that is going to be on the final, he will play again just the 1 month after the final of this Club World Cup. It's really tough, and I think the FIFA needs to take care also about the players. Yeah. How are they doing this calendar?
Hi, let's go to Rio de Janeiro to Tim. Tim, speaking of a busy schedule, this is the Chelsea coach, Enzo Maresca, speaking before the game against Fluminense. This is what he said. Let's listen.
We came to this tournament in two different situations. How many official matches have Brazilian teams played this season? We've played 63 matches. So European teams have come to this competition in a different situation than those from Brazil or South America because of the number of matches we've played.
Actually, Tim, Maresca was reminded by a Brazilian journalist that Fluminense actually played 70 games. So what do you make from the complaints from the Europeans that they're being overstretched, that they're being fatigued?
I think there is a general point to be made here, and that is everyone is playing too much. And there is a risk of oversaturation in terms of ruining the product because we are making excessive demands on the players. And having said that, obviously the idea of a tournament bringing together clubs from all the continents of the world is entirely valid and a very exciting one. But if we're going to go down this path, if we're going to add new tournaments, then something has to go. We need more conversations involving the players as well to agree a more rational calendar that allows tournaments, excellent ideas like this, to come in. I can understand the European resistance to this tournament because essentially what FIFA are trying to do is get their hands on the money which is generated by European club football, which is very much the center of the club football world. You know, I've had a stressful month because as an English football journalist based in Brazil, I've felt continually shocked by both sides because I'm caught between the country where the competition seems to matter least and the country where the competition seems to matter most. I would love it to matter for everyone because it is such a valid idea. But in order to do that, We have to preserve player welfare. At the moment, I fear we are making too many demands on the players.
All right, let's talk about these continents that you're torn between, Tim. South America sent 6 teams to the tournament, 4 from Brazil, 2 from Argentina. The producer of the show, I should remind you, is from Brazil. So I've been asked to emphasize that the Brazilians made it through to the group stage, one getting into the semi-finals. But really, has there been much enthusiasm for the tournament in South America?
Massive enthusiasm. It's for Brazilian club fans, it's been even bigger than the World Cup of national teams. Because when the Brazilian national team plays, almost all the players are in Europe. So they're a long way away. So the club fan, he feels a stronger bond with his club side. And this has been, this whole idea, this whole tournament has been a dream come true for the Brazilian teams who have longed for ages to have this kind of opportunity. I actually think that this competition, it could have gone wrong. And I think it was saved on 2 occasions. Firstly, right from the start, I think it was saved by the South American fans, the travelling army of South American fans, because for this to work on TV, the director has to be able to cut to the crowd with images that tell you that this thing matters. It's not just an exhibition game. And we had that right from the start, from the wonderful travelling army of South American fans. And the other thing that saved the competition was the Monday in the second round, where Fluminense of Brazil beat Inter Milan of Italy and Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia beat Manchester City of England. Because we were looking at 7 European teams in the last 8. And that, I think, would have been a disappointment. Instead, we had 5 European teams, 3 from elsewhere. And although it's boiled down to an all-European final, that participation from other parts of the world, I think, has been very important for the success of this tournament.
Right. Joe Henry, great to have you with us. Of course, as we've just heard, the United States is hosting this tournament. And of course, next year, the United States, together with Mexico and Canada, will host the World Cup. There's been lackluster support for soccer at the international professional level in the United States. FIFA, of course, is on the offensive. It's hoping that something like this tournament will spark some passion for the game, but there were still lots of empty seats. What did you make of it?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. So, you know, this is a new tournament. This is a new format. Previously, it was only 7 teams, and the UEFA and CONMEBOL teams show up at the semifinal and for the final. So this being a new format, I don't think people were aware of the Club World Cup. What is the Club World Cup? How do teams qualify for the Club World Cup? And now it's going to be every 4 years instead of, you know, every 1 year. As far as going forward, you know, I think it was a good showing, but they could have done it a little bit differently. It was a little oversaturated with teams that Americans have never heard of. And also the games being at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, Americans are at work. They don't have time to go to these games during the day. So I think that kind of hurt the attendance a little bit.
Yeah, Joe, as a matter of interest, you know, the United States hosted the World Cup in 1994. What did that do for soccer in the United States?
It definitely helped to grow it. And, you know, not just the men's World Cup, but, you know, the women playing here shortly after and winning, that was a huge part of it too. You know, I played soccer all my life growing up, and I remember watching the '94 World Cup, and that's kind of when I fell in love with the sport. That's when I started playing, you know, able to see it on TV, multiple games per day. It started to grow the sport even more, and now we're starting to see it grow even further. You see with the club teams, it's just exploding. I was actually at the Real Madrid Al Hilal game in Miami, and I was with my friend's son. The last time I had seen him, he was doing football, and now he's doing soccer drills. He's already been doing soccer training since I left 2 weeks ago. So the youth is watching Mbappe. They're watching, you know, the other guys from, you know, even the Saudi Pro League. So the young kids are seeing it, and they're loving it.
All right. Abadi, you know, FIFA has come under scrutiny at times for its priorities. It's been accused of putting money ahead of fans when it comes to where the tournaments will be held, Qatar being a case in point. And just a few weeks ago, FIFA's chief Gianni Infantino took the Italian club Juventus to the White House. Let's listen to what he said there.
The learnings that we have this year with the Club World Cup, which is historic, I say this to all the Americans, because it's the first ever Club World Cup, and it's played in the United States of America. So the learnings we'll have for this will apply them next year.
And they're largely sold out.
So President Trump will actually present the trophy, and FIFA has just opened an office in Trump Tower. What do you make of these decisions?
It's the global influence. And that's indeed what the FIFA is looking for, is the global influence through corporate influence. And I'll give an example here. When we talked about oversaturated schedule, these teams elected to come to and play. They have an option to reject the nomination, and other teams will jump right on it, okay? And I'll give an example. Man United and Barcelona would have taken these position and seats and help them securing more financial stability into their physical year. They have a lot of financial issues from teams that have big brands. So when we talk about money, yes, money talks and the brand talks. Global influence, that's when PIF came into the play, and they become the prime sponsor of this event, putting over $1 billion on prize pool money. And that's itself, it's a global influence from the Saudi Pro League, from the Saudi investments, to come in here and help FIFA secure such a tournament and provide such unbelievable broadcasting services and streaming services through the zone. So overall, every team has the right to say, well, I have an oversaturated calendar, I cannot come in. And then other teams will come in, and we looked at the Messi mania in the stadium, game 1, 60,000 fans watching Al Ahly against Inter Miami. At the same time, we cannot ignore the fact that there's so much money pouring into this Club World Cup from the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia to showcase that Saudi Arabia is here for this tournament, funding the environment. Donald Trump securing, a space for the FIFA's offices, another showcase that the FIFA will have a footprint in Miami as a regional or headquarter office in the U.S. and in New York as another regional office for the upcoming Nation World Cup in 2026. They needed it, they secured it. It's all about relationship, and I applaud them for taking that deal. Why not? Let's do it.
Tim, what do you make of all the money floating around? Because, as Abadi just told us, money talks. The prize pool is $1 billion on the table here. Actually, there's a story behind that, because that's what the streaming service DAZN paid for the rights. DAZN sold a stake in its business to a Saudi Arabian company for $1 billion, and Saudi Arabia will host the World Cup in 2034. There's a lot of cash floating around. I mean, is that sort of inevitable? Would we be naive to think that it could be done in any other way?
Well, when it was agreed which European teams would compete in this, there was no idea of how much money would be on the table. Had Europe known that this amount of money would be available, we wouldn't have seen 2 teams from Portugal and a team from Austria making money from this tournament. You would have seen the likes of Liverpool and Barcelona struggling to be there as well, making money from it. In terms of the World Cup in 2026, I think there are a few points of concern here. One, obviously, is the temperatures that we're subjecting players to. I remember last year in the South American tournament, the Copa America, we had a linesman from Guatemala collapse and be hospitalized because of the heat of a game in Kansas. These are dangerous forces that we're playing with. The weather delays are a disaster. They just can't happen during the World Cup. It's a commercial and a sporting disaster. These games being interrupted sometimes for 2 hours because of weather delays. The pitches haven't been good enough. They will have to be improved to have a good spectacle in the World Cup next year. And one thing which does concern me, I don't know if my learned friends are aware of this story, which comes from table tennis. Brazilian table tennis star Hugo Calderano, ranked third in the world, was barred from entering the United States to play a tournament. Now that's because it was a visa mix-up. Because in order to qualify for the Olympics last year, he had to play the Pan American Games in Cuba. And because he had visited Cuba, this visa mix-up, he was not allowed to enter the United States for a table tennis tournament. Now, the United States has agreed to host the world, both in next year's World Cup and in the Los Angeles Olympics 2 years later. And if you agree to host the world, you have to open your doors to the athletes, officials, and supporters of all of the competing countries. So what happened to Hugo Calderano cannot be allowed to happen to athletes, officials, or supporters of any of the nations going to the World Cup or the world going to the Olympics in 2028. And this could involve FIFA having to play a hard line with the United States government, because this is obviously a potential point of conflict.
Right, great points you make there, Tim, and I'm guessing that's going to be a complete show by itself. Let me go to Laura. Laura, what do you make of what Tim pointed out, that this tournament is being held in very high temperatures? You know, it has a great impact on the players. And to what extent is this a challenge for FIFA? Because what they're trying to do, especially when the games are being played here in the Western Hemisphere, in the United States, is to screen it in prime time in Europe.
Yeah, we have to remember that in the last World Cup in Qatar, it was moved to November, December, due to the weather conditions. So right now we are discussing something similar happening next year's World Cup, but that's not going to change. The calendar is not going to change. It's going to be July, the World Cup. So that's a fact. So right now, what FIFA must do is start thinking how that conditions are going to be figured out to help the players during the cooling breaks, during the mid-time. They have to do something, because it's really hard to play in those conditions. I just want to go back to one point when you were talking about the revenue of this Club World Cup, because FIFA projected 2 billion of this total revenue. So they aren't just expanding the game, but they are reinforcing that football is now part of FIFA's global business empire. And the US is a very important market to conquer. So that's why they have this Club World Cup and also the World Cup on next year. Because if we go to the revenue regarding sports, we have to look to the United States, because baseball, football, and basketball, the NBA, are the sports that have the biggest revenue in the world of sports. So they need, and they know that the United States is a huge market to conquer. So that's why we are seeing these tournaments over there, regarding the conditions, regarding the calendar, regarding everything that goes beyond the game. They need to go to the United States because they want to grow in the business empire.
Right. Joe Henry, there have been purists who've been talking about, they pointed to what they call the Americanization of the event itself. Players are introduced onto the field one by one, just like they do in basketball. There are fireworks, there are DJs, there's announcers. It may work, but to what extent do organizers have to promote soccer far more in this country, perhaps put far more money at the college level?
The landscape of development in this country is very different. And it's even changing now with NIL in college. So there's going to be two kind of avenues. You know, the colleges can now start paying players to attend the schools. But if you're going to be a top flight player in the EPL, the Portuguese League, La Liga, if you're that good, you're probably skipping college. You're going to play for, you know, a lower level team in Germany, England, what have you. So that's, I mean, this is, with the NIL, that's going to be interesting to see. Are players going to choose money and go to college? Or are they going to choose a sporting competition in development and go to, you know, the Barcelona B team or Dortmund, you know, like Claudio Reyna? Yeah. So that will be that'll be interesting to see as we go forward.
Yeah. Tim, let's look at the four Brazilian clubs. Flamengo beat Chelsea 3-1. And if you look on your screen right now, you will see our producer, Mario, there with his daughter at that game. Botafogo beat PSG. Fluminense eliminated Inter Milan. And Palmeiras was the first in its group. But then again, how Brazilian are these groups? I mean, there's almost 40 foreign players combined among the four clubs. Is the Brazilian league becoming a little bit like the Premier League?
Well, it's a very interesting comparison, and Brazil is becoming a little bit like the Premier League of South America. Brazil now treats South America the way that Europe treats Brazil, taking its most promising players, its most promising youngsters, and its biggest stars. Actually, I think one of the things that is happening is that Brazilian football is almost decoupling itself from South American football. Our Champions League, it's called the Copa Libertadores. The last 6 years, it's been won by Brazilian clubs. 4 of those finals have been all Brazilian affairs. This is unprecedented. And I wonder, one thing that perhaps this competition has given a push to, and it's ironic that we're talking about this in the wake of Donald Trump announcing a trade war with Brazil. But I wonder if this is a push towards Brazilian clubs competing on a more regular basis, on a competitive basis, against teams not only from Mexico, but also from Major League Soccer. We saw 2 very good games in this tournament, and Botafogo beating Seattle Sounders with a little bit of luck, and Palmeiras tying 2-2 with Inter Miami. Really good games.
Yeah.
And some of the Brazilian club directors are already looking north of the Rio Grande and thinking that there's money there for us. It could be more interesting for us to play teams from the United States than for us to play teams from Bolivia and Paraguay. So this is probably quite worrying for a lot of South America, but I think we are seeing a push, movements towards some kind of Pan-American competition. And maybe in the future, that could be an alternative pole to the domination of club football by Europe, because the Americas together, there is clearly a lot of potential there.
Abadi, you know, we're looking at new countries coming into the game right now. When we see this kind of movement of players that we've been talking about, what does it do for the development of the game at the national level?
Absolutely. I mean, when you bring players from any European leagues with the superstar names locally, and you bring them and bridge them into a new league, whether it's the Brazilian league or the Saudi Pro leagues, it comes with a buzz. And that really help out to motivate the squads and the players in that respective leagues to do their best to compete with these national figures, these prominent figure names, and come and play. Now, there is a lot of lesson learned here, and I will give a Saudi Pro as an example. When Cristiano Ronaldo moved into the Saudi leagues, the Saudi PIF were putting a lot of money in there just to bring Cristiano, because he was the beacon of bringing more players to the league. Cristiano Ronaldo was playing in a league in the summer temperature is 40 degrees Celsius, and he play and run like a 30 years old player, professional player. I will add to what Tim said here, the cross-continental games, whether it's Panama, America, Asia, Africa, Asia, Brazil, Asia, Libertadores, that will generate a lot of buzz, a lot of bang for players to come and play and compete at the highest level. The lesson learned from this and overall is the U.S., dry run for the World Cup here. They have the infrastructure, for example, to play in indoor facilities. And take a look at all the NFL stadiums that are in place. There are plenty of games that can be played in an indoor environment with a safe environment for the fan and for the players. Now we go to the night session. All these games can be played in an outdoor space in Florida as an example, in Kansas as an example, in New York as an example, where they have stadiums that are outdoor space. The best infrastructure for the World Cup to be hosted today, it's absolutely the United States of America. And so I don't think that there is a lesson learned that the FIFA and the US have to sit together in a round table and kind of take a look at it from what can we do to promote the World Cup in 2026 better, in a safe manner, in a welfare for the players. And that's it.
And we have to leave it there. Thanks to all of you for being with us. And that is it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington.